Governance of the theocracy. Just as the clergy controls the Temple of Menothe from the top down, so too does it rule the Protectorate itself. Priests, and scrutators in particular, have the authority to take charge of aspects of the Protectorate government or military as they see fit. While a town or village may have a local secular or appointed leaders, if a ranking priest decides to intervene, he can supersede any authority, except that of a more senior priest. As an extension of their function, scrutators are more likely to assume control of a populace than ordinary priests. For example, a scrutator's potent on a vital mission could enter a Mennonite town and assume authority from a local priest, taking charge of the town garrison and any other manpower he may require. Similarly, even a low-ranking priest could enter a fishing village and assume control over its inhabitants, most often to enlist them in the war effort. Office of the Hierarch. The office of the hierarch is the formalized reinstatement of the priest-kings of old, a position of absolute power within the Protectorate. The hierarch is both head of state and the highest priest in the temple, thus combining both secular and religious authority. While the process of becoming a hierarch is contentious and often bloody, all descent ends once he is declared. The hierarch commands our law, and the scrutator caste is devoted to preserving him and removing any potential threats to his rule. It falls to the synod of Visigoths to handle the day-to-day governance of the Protectorate when the hierarch is otherwise occupied, such as when he's leading an army in times of war. The hierarch relies on the scrutators to monitor the Visigoths and inform him of their actions, as well as report on the state of the Protectorate's heartlands. When the hierarch is away from the capital, as he has been in the case of several years due to the Northern Crusade, scrutators endeavor to keep him well informed. Because of the distance involved, delays are unavoidable, and the risk of important information or dignitaries being intercepted is high. The vice scrutators coordinate these missions to ensure vital intelligence is not lost. But there is no doubt Hierarch Severius's direct control over the theocracy has been affected by his absence. The synod has stepped in to fill in the void, increasing their own relative power. The Synod of Visigoths. The Visigoths are the ranking leaders of the temple and serve as the advisory panel to the hierarch, entrusted with governing different aspects of the Protectorate bureaucracy in his name. All Visigoths are members of the synod. Because the standing synod has had very little direct interaction with Hierarch Severius since he established Les Rennes as the headquarters of the Northern Crusade, the council's advisory function has been essentially nullified. Since her arrival, the Harbinger has assumed this role instead. Nonetheless, the synod retains control over governance in the south, which has allowed the southern and northern regions to operate virtually independent of one another. The Northern Crusade still receives periodic resupply and reinforcements from the south, but these only come infrequently, and the Northern Crusade has taken measures to be self-sufficient. The areas of oversight of the current Visigoths were established by Hierarch Voil, and has remained unchanged since his death. Some have speculated that a 10th Visigoth might be promoted to govern the lands claimed by the Northern Crusade, but for now the hierarch rules these territories personally, with the assistance of Vice Scrutator Vindictus. One consequence of the hierarch's absence, however, has been the strengthening of the relationship between the synod and Fiora, the protector and priestess of the flame. For several years, Fiora has been the foremost military leader overseeing the southern garrisons, and she has been in frequent contact with the synod. A number of its members have become her close allies, and while they are careful not to openly defy the hierarch, senior scrutators believe their loyalties may have been compromised. Addendum. The 9 Visigoths. Var Bodalin, first Visigoth of Emir, vice scrutator, prime curate over scrutator initiation. Lars Elimon, fourth Visigoth of Emir, scrutator, overseer of temple defense and armament. Morgrimmer Jarsenrun, 6th Visgov of Emir, overseer of mines, quarries, and wells. Mishiva Nestor, 3rd Visgov of Emir, Secretator, overseer of vassals of Menov. Ark Resnik, 5th Visgov of Emir, overseer of the Sulmenite artifactors. Juvara Rovin, Visgov and overseer of Sul, vice secretator. Braun Skarel, Visgov of the South, overseer of ancient Ichthier. Iljorin Sorayers, Visgov and overseer of the Tower of Judgment, Secretator. And Declan Veshir, 2nd Visgov of Emir, vice secretator, head of the Lyceum of the True Law. End addendum. Armies of the Northern Crusade. The military of the Protectorate of Menotth is also an extension of the Temple and its Great Crusade, its soldiers counted as both guardians and crusaders. Each crusading army serves this cause is composed of dedicated, well-trained warriors drawn from numerous martial orders, combined with combatants gathered from organized militias and conscripted zealots. As a result, the military of the Protectorate represents a wide range of skill and discipline, from dedicated knights who have devoted their lives to the temple to untrained civilians, armed and sent into battle with very little preparation. The citizen soldiers of the Temple Flame Guard and the elite warriors of the Knights Exemplar compose the core of the professional military. These two orders are joined by members of the Protectorate's smaller military orders, which include the Order of the Wall and the Order of the Fist. The Protectorate is also willing to field mercenary forces that are at least marginally respectful to the Creator of man and willing to be supervised by priests to ensure they perform as required. But the bulk of their numbers arise from militia soldiers and zealot levies armed with simple weapons from numerous armament caches set aside for that purpose. The call to war created a need to define a clear chain of command among the Protectorate's martial orders. Traditionally, as long as the leaders of each order demonstrate their loyalty to the temple hierarchy, they had an autonomy over their organizations. Though some degree of independence remains, Hierarch Voil realized that his nation's ability to conduct war on a larger scale would require the integration of the Protectorate's various military arms. This task of restructuring the Protectorate's military forces was entrusted to Severius during his tenure as Grand Secretator under Hierarch Voil's rule. Knowing that reorganizing the Protectorate's military structure required careful attention to logistics and planning, Severius created the Office of War Council and appointed Born Scizion to the position as senior secular officer in the military to oversee auxiliary forces and to coordinate the martial orders. In 608, Hierarch Severius appointed Cryx as his intercessor, entrusting him with the oversight of the military that Severius himself once possessed as Grand Secretator. Cryx is considered the supreme commander of the Protectorate's armies, working together with War Counselor Scizion and answering directly to the Hierarch. While Feora, protector and priestess of the flame, is technically subordinate to Cryx, he is often preoccupied with matters in the north, which allows her to retain considerable autonomy in the south. It is no secret that the Hierarch favors Cryx over Feora, and this has created ongoing tensions that have yet to be resolved. For the most part, these leaders have been able to put aside their individual differences in the interests of the Great Crusade. Military structure. The Protectorate's forces are organized into garrisons and crusading armies. Garrisons include the defenders of the Protectorate's cities, towns, and facilities, as well as its reserve forces. The garrisons are predominantly made up of the temple's flame guard and militia forces, supported by smaller numbers of troops from other martial orders. Crusading armies requires more integrated forces of a highly varied composition. Crusading armies are divided up into interdictions, which are usually composed of phalanxes of a single martial order. Phalanxes are divided up into detachments that vary in size depending on the martial order from which they're drawn from. Cavalry and heavy knights form the smallest phalanxes, up to 30 knights, while infantry knights and knights errant assemble into medium-sized phalanxes of up to 50 knights. And the Temple Flame Guard phalanxes are the largest, with it up to 100 Flame Guard in each. In some cases, selected soldiers are gathered to create a mix of interdictions to serve as a specific warcaster or to fulfill a specific mission. These special forces operate together for as long as it is required before returning to their regular duties. Priests serve as commanders at all levels of the military. They command troops on the field and oversee logistics and supply lines. Experienced lay soldiers can be promoted to positions of authority within these martial orders, but they are expected to treat priests with the respect regardless of their rank. In situations that present an unclear chain of command, ranking priests are obeyed before secular commanders. The Northern Crusade. The Northern Crusade is the Protectorate's primary crusading army. It was sent into the war-torn lands of Lael in 606 to establish a permanent Menite holding there, which it has successfully maintained in the years since. During that time, the Northern Crusade has extended its control to much of eastern Lael, defending its territory against both Cadoran military forces and the undead minions of the Nightmare Empire of Cryx. Leirin is the headquarters of the Northern Crusade. Its impressive battlements, self-sufficiency, and near impregnability make it ideal for hierarch Severus' needs. Further, he was able to seize Leirin without directly assaulting its walls, taking the city virtually intact. Though Cador plundered some of its wealth and resources, Leirin's industrial facilities and defenses were left in pristine condition and ready to be converted to facilitate the hierarch's war efforts. Leirin's citizenry have learned to heed the Protectorate's priests, and many have converted into the Sul Menite faith. The Northern Crusade has been greatly reinforced since Severus became hierarch. Many of the Protectorate's warcasters have joined the Northern Crusade, including the Harbinger of Menotھ, the Testament, and Intersexor Krios. The Intersexor oversees the day-to-day operations of the organization of the Crusade and reportedly reports directly to Hierarch Severus himself, who takes great interest in its operations. Leirin's standing garrison is commanded by Vice-Secretator Vindictus, who, like Severus, is blessed with the warcaster talent. The garrison supplies troops and materials to the Northern Crusade throughout its ongoing battles. The Southern Garrisons. The Southern Garrisons include the forces stationed in Sul, Emir, Ichthir, and Tower Judgment. Though Visgovs and Secretators maintain oversight of these holdings, the military officers who command the garrisons are drawn from among Fiora's loyal subordinates. The Priestess of the Flame has established a protocol whereby members of the Flame Guards Incendium serve as intermediaries between high-ranking priests and the officers commanding the garrisons. These measures allow Fiora to control the flow of information and the allocation of resources to the bulk of the Protectorate's southern military. Fiora is able to draw upon these garrisons to form her own armies at very short notice. However, she is careful to maintain their essential functions of defending the Protectorate's borders and cities. Protecting Sul and Emir in particular is absolutely vital, as these are the major industrial and government centers, as well as the sites of holiest significance. Though their role is primarily defensive, the southern garrisons have participated in conflicts beyond the borders of the Protectorate in recent years. These battles were mostly often covert operations, undertaken by the Daughters of the Flame, under the leadership of Thra, Flame of Sorrow, as well as other forces led by Malchus the Burning Truth, both operating under Feora's orders. The largest action undertaken by a crusading army drawn from these garrisons was during the Second Signaran Civil War. Led by Feora, The army penetrated deep into Signar's interior and occupied its southern armies, while Vinter and Leto Ralthorn contested for the nation's throne. Feora had entered into a temporary agreement with Vinter in hopes of seeing the Maurian faith weakened in Signar. While Feora's armies achieved its objectives of cutting off the Signaran railway and preventing reinforcements, Vinter failed in his bid to seize the throne. On the orders of Intersexor Krios, Feora eventually withdrew. The soldiers of this crusade returned to their garrisons as victors, having driven the sword of the faith deep into Signar, killing many unbelievers. Addendum. Navy of the Protectorate. The Protectorate of Menothe is not a naval power, but it does maintain a small number of armed vessels to defend a coastline that stretches from Sual to ancient Ichthier. Many of these ships are crewed by native Idrians drawn to the creed of Menothe. The majority of the Protectorate's ocean-faring vessels are working ships, including a fishing fleet beyond Sual. Any of these could be rigged for battle if necessary, but the theocracy has largely surrendered control of the Gulf to the Signaran navy. The Visigoths know that they would lose in any substantial engagement against Signar's formidable eastern fleet. This acknowledged weakness in the Protectorate's defenses has not proved to be important enough to address. Most of the military clashes between the Protectorate and its enemies take place on land, and the Signaran's navy has made no substantial attempts to strike at the smaller settlements that dot the Protectorate's coastline. Cryxian vessels occasionally raid settlements on the nation's shores, but such incidents are rare. The Protectorate finds it more effective to allow Signar's navy to intercept Cryxian raiders rather than expand its limited resources towards shipbuilding. In any case, most of Sual's docks are well defended by imposing walls, and the capital of Emir and its vital industry and mines are 100 miles inland. The most vulnerable Protectorate city is the blessed city of ancient Ichthier, whose relative isolation has thus preserved it from attack. End addendum.